So, Gaelic football. Almost a month ago, I was in Ireland and I was able to do something I've been wanting to do for the last couple of years in terms of things I would like to see, was watching Gaelic football. I was able to do it at a pretty decent time, as it was obviously the finals of the All-Ireland Championship, and I was able to get tickets to Dublin versus Kerry as the second semi-final. So let's talk about it. Getting tickets was a very interesting sort of situation. Now, it obviously wasn't the final, because I know that that's an absolute pain to try to get tickets for it, because it seems like from an outsider perspective, it's basically you need to know a whole heap of people to get tickets for those games. And so I was sort of looking for when the tickets came, when the games got announced, and I knew I was going to be able to go to only one of the semis, and it was going to be Dublin versus Kerry. And the days leading up to it, I just kept trying to see tickets. Some would pop up, but some wouldn't. It was a bit weird. I think the website was a bit of a weird one when I was doing it, but I was able, a few days beforehand, able to snag a ticket for €60. It's about 100 Australian, which, yeah, fair enough. So I actually got into Dublin the day prior, which was a train from Cork into Dublin, Houston. And you could definitely see that the sport had taken hold, because the day I got there was the day of Louth versus Mayo. I feel like I may have said the first team wrong. I apologise. And there was definitely a lot of Mayo presence. It was absolutely mental to see just everybody out and about. And it just basically saw each sort of train, because I waited around for a bit to chew up time before I could check into my hotel. And it was just, each train is just, oh yeah, there's about 100 or so supporters of Mayo there. So it was just a very cool sight. Now, if you are an overseas traveller and basically wanting to go to games like this, you need one of these bad boys. Just a Leap card. You get them at most like convenience stores. Just put money on it. It's just like an Oyster card. Opal if you're Australian, but yeah, it was pretty simple. Just caught buses and that, really, to get there, and it was pretty simple. Walking to the actual ground itself, there was a lot of people selling essentially like merchandise for both teams. So you had like, your flags and hats and whatnot. Also the these rope bands that people had on their arms and around their heads. I know there's probably a proper term for them, but I'm too lazy to look. It was interesting to see, because I didn't know if this was like official or not, because usually like in Australia, you see someone selling stuff like that, it's not official stuff. So it was interesting, because there was a lot of them in the streets leading up to the ground, Croke Park, which, getting there, holy shit, it's massive. I know like it's a very decent ground, all that, but it's like, 83,000 capacity. I just want to check actually what was the attendance for that game. Yeah, total capacity 82,300. It's pretty mental to say. And we got tickets on the direct opposite side of the ground from the hill. And yeah, it was a little bit of a ball actually trying to get into that end, because you have to go like a couple of streets away from where like the main entrance is to actually get in there. But once you're in, you're pretty solid. Now, in terms of like my familiarity with the sport, obviously when it comes to Australia, we have our own version sort of Australian football, the AFL. So I'm pretty all right with that. I mean, in terms of the whole Baresi code, I'm on the other side of the fence. But yeah, it's like, I watch AFL, and obviously there was a period of time where it was the international series where they somehow merged Gaelic football and Australian rules football into just a pipe dream. But yeah, I sort of knew, 1 point if it goes over between the posts, over the goal, 3 points for in the goal. Now, I didn't know that if you kicked it over the goal between the posts from a certain distance, it actually counted as 2 points. I only found that out during one of the games, which there actually was a doubleheader. So we go back to the program. It was the junior final, which was between London and a United States side. I don't think they were specific as to where, but it was just the US GAA team, which was pretty close for like a fair amount of time, but then London just ran absolute rough shot and won their first junior title. I think it was about 40 years. So that was good to see. I did see at one point a fair many people rushing to like the front bit right near where the field is to get photos of this man in a suit, and I didn't know who the person was, but it turned out to be this bloke who I'm assuming is essentially the head of the GAA. So it's weird. I don't think you'd be seeing sort of like that for in Australian sports. I mean, they'd mostly probably getting abuse. Now, going into this, the atmosphere, holy shit. Where I was situated, it was pretty even in terms of who else. We had like big chunks of like Kerry supporters, and then you also obviously had big areas which were Dublin. I think it was 60-40 Dublin, but it was pretty like close nonetheless. And teams marched around the stadium following a marching band. I thought that was pretty cool. That was, yeah, it's like pretty fair. Then game was a bit cagey in the early start of it, and then probably one of the main talking points of the game, and it was probably one of the more controversial points, was the penalty decision that Kerry got, and that was an interesting one where basically the left side of my ear, when it was initially saved, burst when all the Dublin fans went up, only for about 5 seconds later my right side of my ear to get blown out by all the Kerry fans celebrating the rebound and the goal. And yeah, the atmosphere was mostly the Dublin fans chanting, because obviously there was a lot more of them. I mean, the hill was pretty much nearly all Dublin except like a tiny patch at the top corner. And yeah, just kept going. It was still very close, and it was eventually just about Kerry had gotten just a little bit of a lead, and it was just enough. Kerry had won the game, and they were through to the All-Ireland final, and they were taking on Mayo, which was really interesting. Now, I did know that there was a fair amount of success for both teams. I mean, Dublin, I believe, was like one of the 5 straight or something at one point in relative recent memory, and Kerry, as far as I understand, are like the most dominant. I think they were going for like their 40th title, which we'll get to what happens a little bit later. But yeah, really good game between both teams, and Kerry just about edging enough. In terms of pricing for stuff, it's stadium fruits was like kind of roughly what it was said. I think it was like a pint, like yeah, alcohol drinks was around like 6 to 10, 11 euros, which is about, like 10 to like 15, 16 Australian dollars, which is, yeah, pretty like bang on standard. One thing I did note is I think it's kind of like in the Football League in England. You can't drink at your seat. You have to drink in the concourse, which is, yeah, I think fair enough. I mean, with all the patches in there, I mean, there was no, I don't think anything really happened. I did see at one point in the early parts of the second half, a bunch of people stood up and security started walking down, or I don't think it was really anything that, I don't think there's really any crowd trouble, even after the game, which was interesting because when all the people came out, I had to get a bus to get back to my hotel, and here's my bus stop here. Here's all the people. So it was, to be fair, it wasn't that long. I think it was like 15, 20 minutes, and then they opened the roads back up, but yeah. So obviously had a bit of a keen vested interest in the final, and obviously it was between Kerry and Mayo. Now, Mayo, I'm very aware of a specific thing about how they haven't won an All-Ireland final since, I think it was 1951, I believe is the correct date. And there's been this whole mythos of a curse, essentially. And I mean, probably the Irish are sick of hearing about this. But basically, the returning team disrupted a funeral procession. And basically, the priest said that Mayo would not win another All-Ireland title until, well, every member of that side was alive. And a lot of interesting things are going into that, as this was the first All-Ireland final with Mayo in it where this was met, because the last member died, I believe it was in 2021. And it was a very interesting game. You got, obviously, Mayo trying to end a 75-year drought against the team who was the most successful in the sport. Well,
the famine is over! The famine is over! The curse be damned! Hit the nuclear button! Mayo have won the All-Ireland!
It actually happened. Mayo won the 2026 All Ireland football final. It's absolutely mental, and just the scenes coming from that is just absolutely beautiful to see. And it's like why I like sport so much, especially going to sport in different countries, because I think for me, sport's a very key indicator in terms of trying to get immerse around in the local culture of when you're there. It's sort of like, you have like, it's like up there with like food and like attractions and stuff like that. That it's like, it's important for me to like be amongst it like that. And it was just really mental to see. So yeah, it was really fun. I would recommend Gaelic football. Didn't see hurling. I know that it's interesting because people, for me as an outsider, I see it as like it's fairly similar, but instead of them kicking a leather football, they've got helmets and got a hurley, and they're absolutely twatting a ball into the next town. It will be still the same sort of rules in that, but yeah, there's a pretty distinct difference of people preferring one or the other, but it's will be interesting to see if that does end up happening down the line. But yeah, thank you all for watching this. I did one of these pretty similarly with English Rugby League when I went to the Magic Weekends. If you want to see that, you're free to go to. But yeah, that's an unwarranted Australian opinion on Gaelic football. And so yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.